What if the person who came to stay for a few weeks slowly began to change everything inside your home? Claire had always believed her marriage was steady. Not perfect, but steady. She and Ethan lived in a small townhouse outside Denver. He worked long hours at an architecture firm. She managed social media campaigns for a growing fashion brand. They were busy, tired, but comfortable. Their home was their quiet place. That changed the morning Linda arrived. Linda stepped out of the taxi with 2 large suitcases and a bright smile that didn't quite hide her sadness. Her divorce had finalized 3 weeks earlier. After 30 years of marriage, she was suddenly alone. Claire felt responsible. She insisted her mother stay with them just for a little while. Ethan hugged Linda warmly. "Your family," he said. "Stay as long as you need." Those words sounded kind. Claire didn't realize how heavy they would become. The first few days felt normal. Linda cooked dinner every night. The kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary. She told stories about her younger years in Boston. Ethan listened closely, asking questions Claire had never heard him ask before. "You've been through so much," Ethan told Linda one evening. "You're strong." Claire smiled politely from across the table, but something small shifted inside her. By the end of the week, Linda had reorganized the pantry. "It flows better this way," she said cheerfully. She replaced the living room curtains with lighter ones. More natural light helps moods. She rearranged the bookshelf. She even suggested moving the couch. "It just feels more open," Linda explained. Claire tried not to overthink it. It was only furniture. Only shelves. Only small things. But one night, Claire walked into the bedroom and stopped cold. The framed wedding photo that once sat on her nightstand was gone. In its place was a simple vase of fresh flowers. "Oh," Linda said from the doorway. "I moved it to the hallway. It deserves a spotlight." Claire forced a smile. "Right." That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. The house didn't feel like hers anymore. It felt staged. Designed. Controlled. Meanwhile, Ethan seemed lighter. He laughed more. He came home earlier. He sat at the kitchen table with Linda, talking about work stress. Claire noticed how easily he opened up. "She really listens," Ethan said once. "It's nice." Claire raised an eyebrow. "I listen." "You do," he replied quickly. "You're just busy." The word hung between them. Busy. Claire started noticing the details. Linda asking Ethan about his day before Claire had the chance. Linda placing a comforting hand on his shoulder when he looked stressed. Linda remembering his favorite coffee order. One Saturday afternoon, Claire returned from grocery shopping earlier than expected. The house was quiet. Soft music played from the living room. She stepped inside and saw them sitting close on the couch, reviewing blueprints for Ethan's new project. Linda leaned in, pointing at the page. Ethan's face was animated. "You have such vision," Linda said softly. "Don't let anyone doubt that." Claire stood there for a moment before clearing her throat. They looked up quickly. "Oh. You're back," Ethan said. Claire nodded. "Seems like I interrupted." "No, we were just talking," Linda said smoothly. "Just talking." That phrase began to repeat in Claire's mind. Over the next week, Linda took more control. She handled laundry. She paid a few household bills to help out. She suggested meal plans. She reminded Ethan about meetings. She offered advice on his presentations. "You need someone in your corner," Linda told him. Claire overheard that one from the hallway. Wasn't she supposed to be that person? One evening, Claire suggested a date night. "Just her and Ethan." Linda smiled politely. "Of course. I'll stay in." But when Claire and Ethan sat at the restaurant, the conversation felt strained. "You've been quiet lately," Ethan said. "So have you, Claire." Replied. He sighed. "Mom just understands what I'm going through." Claire stiffened at the word mom. He rarely called Linda that before. "I understand too," Claire said carefully. "You're always stressed," he responded. "She's calmer." The words hit harder than he intended. Back home, Claire walked through the house slowly. The scent of Linda's candle filled the air. The furniture placement was no longer familiar. Even the throw pillows weren't hers. It wasn't just about decor, it was about presence. Linda's presence was everywhere. The real twist came one rainy Tuesday. Claire stayed late at work. When she arrived home, the lights were dim. She heard laughter from the kitchen. Linda and Ethan stood close by the counter, sharing a glass of wine. Ethan looked relaxed in a way Claire hadn't seen in months. "You deserve someone who believes in you," Linda was saying gently. Claire's chest tightened. Ethan looked up and saw her. For a brief second, guilt flashed across his face. "Hey," he said quickly. "We were just celebrating my proposal getting approved." Claire forced a smile. "That's great. But why hadn't he called her first?" Later that night, Claire confronted him softly. "Are we okay?" she asked. He hesitated. "Of course we are," he replied. "You're overthinking." Maybe she was. Or maybe she wasn't. The next morning, Claire found a small detail that changed everything. Ethan's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while he showered. The message preview lit up the screen. "Linda, I'm proud of you. Don't ever feel alone in this house." Claire stared at the words. "Don't ever feel alone in this house." It sounded supportive, but it also sounded intimate. Claire set the phone down carefully. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked around the kitchen. At the new curtains. The rearranged cabinets. The fresh flowers. Linda hadn't just moved in, she had stepped into spaces that once belonged to Claire, and for the first time, Claire felt something she never expected to feel inside her own home. Not anger, not jealousy, but fear, because emotional lines don't break loudly, they blur quietly, and Claire could sense they were already starting to disappear. Home ******. How do you fight for your marriage when the threat doesn't look like one? Claire tried to tell herself she was imagining things. A message on a phone meant nothing. A few laughs in the kitchen meant nothing. But the feeling in her chest refused to go away. The house moved around her like a space she was renting. Linda now woke up before everyone. Coffee was ready. Breakfast was warm. Ethan's lunch was packed neatly in a container with a handwritten note. "Big meeting today. You've got this." Claire noticed Ethan smiling at those notes. "You didn't have to do that," he told Linda one morning. "I wanted to," Linda replied softly. Claire stood at the sink, staring at the running water. She couldn't remember the last time Ethan had looked at her like that over something small. Days moved fast. Linda began managing more than the house. She scheduled a plumber when the sink leaked. She called the cable company to lower the bill. She even suggested ways Ethan could improve his presentation style. "She has experience," Ethan told Claire one night. "She ran a business for years with Dad." Claire nodded, but something felt off. Advice was one thing. Dependence was another point. One Friday evening, Claire came home early again. She had cancelled a client meeting just to surprise Ethan with dinner plans. When she opened the door, she heard music playing softly upstairs. She walked toward the sound. In the spare room, now turned into a shared workspace, Linda stood beside Ethan. He was frustrated, staring at his laptop screen. "I can't get this design right," he said. Linda stepped closer. "Take a breath. You're overthinking." She placed her hand gently on his arm. Claire froze in the hallway. It wasn't inappropriate. It wasn't dramatic, but it was intimate. Ethan looked up and saw Claire. He quickly moved his arm away. "Oh, hey," he said. "You're home early." Claire forced a small smile. "Yeah." Linda stepped back, adjusting her sweater. "We were just going over ideas." Just going over ideas. Claire heard those words too many times. That night, Claire lay awake again. She turned toward Ethan. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. "I don't know," he admitted. The honesty shocked her. "I feel understood lately," he continued carefully. "Less judged." "Judged?" Claire whispered. "I don't mean it like that," he said quickly. "You're always busy. Always stressed. With Mom, things feel calmer." Claire turned onto her back and stared at the ceiling. Calm. That was what he wanted. The next morning, Claire decided to talk to her mother directly. They sat at the kitchen table alone. "Mom, do you realize how much space you're taking?" Claire asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Linda looked surprised. "I'm only helping." "Helping is different from replacing." Linda's expression shifted. I would never replace you. But you're becoming the first person he talks to, Claire said. Linda went quiet. I don't control who he talks to, she replied softly. Maybe he just needs someone who listens without tension. The words hurt more than Claire expected. Later that afternoon, Claire received another shock. She picked up Ethan's jacket to hang it, and a folded paper slipped out. It was a printed email. A job offer in another state. Seattle. Claire's heart pounded. He hadn't mentioned it that evening. She confronted him. You're thinking of leaving? She asked, holding the paper. Ethan looked stunned. You went through my things? It fell out, she snapped. Why didn't you tell me? I wasn't sure, he said defensively. I needed time. Time to tell me or time to decide without me? Silence filled the room. Linda stepped into the hallway, clearly hearing the raised voices. What's going on? She asked gently. This doesn't concern you, Claire replied sharply, but Ethan looked at his mother-in-law instead of his wife. It's just an opportunity, he said. Nothing decided. Claire felt something crack inside her. When were you going to tell me? She demanded. I talked to your mom about it, he admitted quietly. The world felt like it tilted. You talked to her first? Claire whispered. I needed advice. Claire stepped back as if she had been pushed. It wasn't physical betrayal, but it felt like emotional abandonment. That night, no one ate dinner together. Claire sat alone in the bedroom. Ethan stayed downstairs. Linda moved quietly through the house, tension thick in the air. Later, Claire heard soft voices in the living room. She stepped halfway down the stairs and paused. You deserve happiness, Linda was saying. Don't stay somewhere you feel stuck. I don't want to hurt Claire, Ethan replied. You can't live your life afraid to make changes, Linda said softly. Claire's chest tightened. Was her mother encouraging him to leave, or was she simply offering support? The line felt impossible to see. The next morning, Claire found her wedding photo moved again. This time, it sat on a shelf near the hallway, partially hidden behind a plant. She stared at it for a long moment. It felt symbolic. She picked it up and carried it back to the bedroom. When Ethan saw her holding it, he sighed. This isn't about pictures, he said. No, Claire replied. It's about priorities. The tension finally broke that night. I feel like you're building a life with her, Claire said, tears forming. Not me. That's not fair, Ethan shot back. Isn't it? She asked. You share your dreams with her. Your doubts. Your plans. Where do I fit? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I feel closer to her right now, he admitted. The words landed like a blow. Claire stepped back slowly. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about Linda changing furniture or cooking dinner. It was about emotional space, and that space was shifting. Upstairs, Linda sat alone in her room, staring at her packed suitcase she never fully unpacked. She knew what was happening. She hadn't planned for it, but she hadn't stopped it either. The house felt heavy that night. 3 people under one roof. 3 hearts pulling in different directions, and Claire understood something painful. If this continued, she wouldn't lose her house, she would lose her husband, and someone would have to make a choice soon. How far can emotional closeness go before it becomes betrayal? The house felt smaller that week. Every room carried tension. Every glance held questions no one wanted to answer. Claire stopped pretending. She moved through the house quietly, observing instead of reacting. She watched how Ethan's eyes followed Linda when she spoke. She noticed how Linda softened her voice when talking to him. It was subtle. Almost invisible. But it was their point. One evening, Claire made a decision. No more guessing. She asked Linda to meet her for coffee downtown. Neutral ground. Public space. No walls listening. They sat across from each other at a small cafe near Union Station. The noise of strangers gave them privacy. Claire didn't waste time. Are you in love with my husband? Linda's hand froze around her cup. No, she said quickly. Then her voice lowered. I never meant for anything to feel complicated. That's not what I asked, Claire replied calmly. Linda looked out the window. For a long moment, she said nothing. I was lonely, she admitted. After the divorce, I felt invisible. Ethan talks to me. He respects my opinion. It felt good. Claire swallowed hard. Feeling good isn't the same as being right. I know, Linda whispered. Do you want him? Claire asked directly. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to destroy my daughter's life. That wasn't an answer. Claire leaned back in her chair. That means you feel something. Linda didn't deny it. Back at the house, Ethan paced the living room, restless. He knew the conversation was happening. He feared it. When Claire returned, she looked calm. Too calm. We need to talk, she said. Linda stayed upstairs. Ethan sat at the dining table. The same table where they once planned vacations and joked about baby names. It felt like years ago. Do you love her? Claire asked. Ethan stared at the table surface. No. Do you have feelings for her? He hesitated. I feel understood, he said carefully. I feel seen. That's not what I asked. He looked up. His eyes were honest, but conflicted. I don't know what I feel, he admitted. Claire nodded slowly. The truth hurt, but confusion hurt less than lies. Then I'll make it simple, she said firmly. You choose. The word hung heavy in the air. Choose, he repeated. Yes. Your marriage. Or whatever this is becoming. Ethan stood up, frustrated. It's not an affair. I know, Claire replied. That's what makes it worse. It's emotional. It's quiet. It's growing. Silence filled the room. Upstairs, Linda listened to the echo of raised voices. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. You think I planned this? No, Claire said softly. But you didn't stop it. That landed. He remembered the late-night talks. The shared wine. The advice. The comfort. None of it crossed a physical line. But emotionally, he had stepped outside his marriage. I felt alone, he admitted. You were always working. Stressed. Distant. And you never told me, Claire said. I tried. No, she corrected. You talked to her. The truth was simple. He had leaned on the wrong person. Upstairs, Linda made her decision. She came down slowly, suitcase in hand. Both of them looked at her. I'm leaving, she said quietly. Claire blinked. Mom, no, Linda interrupted gently. This is my responsibility. Ethan stood still. You don't have to. Yes, I do, Linda said firmly. I crossed a line. Emotionally. I should have protected your marriage, not stepped into its cracks. The room went silent. Claire felt a mix of relief and sadness. She never wanted it to come to this. I never meant to hurt you, Linda said to her daughter. But I let my loneliness guide me. Claire nodded slowly. I know. Linda turned to Ethan. You need to decide what kind of husband you want to be. He didn't respond. Within an hour, Linda's suitcase was by the door. The house felt strange again. Not tense. Just exposed. Before leaving, Linda hugged Claire tightly. Don't lose him because of pride, she whispered. But don't accept less than respect. Then she was gone. The front door closed softly. Ethan and Claire stood facing each other in the quiet living room. No third voice. No outside influence, just them. You were going to take the Seattle job, Claire said quietly. I was thinking about it, he admitted, without telling me. I didn't know how. Claire felt tears rise but held them back. Marriage isn't about knowing how. It's about trying anyway. He stepped closer. I never touched her. I never meant to replace you. But you almost did, she replied. He didn't argue. The honesty between them felt raw. Do you still want this? Claire asked softly. He looked at her. Really looked at her. I don't want to lose you, he said. That's not the same as wanting me. The silence stretched. Finally, he spoke with clarity. I want us. But I don't know how to fix what I broke. Claire took a slow breath. Then we start by admitting it broke. No yelling. No dramatic exit. Just painful truth. That night, they sat on opposite sides of the couch. Not touching. Not speaking much, but for the first time in weeks, the confusion felt smaller because the secret wasn't hidden anymore. The emotional line had been exposed, and now came the hardest part, rebuilding. Or walking away, and neither of them knew yet which path they would choose. Can love survive after trust has been quietly shaken? The morning after Linda left, the house felt empty. Not peaceful. Not tense. Just quiet. Claire stood in the kitchen holding her coffee, staring at the walls that once felt crowded with someone else's presence. Ethan came downstairs slowly, like a man unsure of his place. "Good morning," he said carefully. Claire nodded. "Morning." No anger. No shouting. Just distance. They sat at the table across from each other. The same table where everything had unraveled. Now it waited for something new. "I didn't sleep," Ethan admitted. "Me neither," Claire replied. He rubbed his hands together. "I keep replaying everything. The talks. The messages. I told myself it was harmless." Claire looked at him steadily. "It wasn't harmless. I know that now." Silence followed, but it felt different than before. It felt honest. Later that day, Ethan made a call. Claire listened from the hallway. "I'm declining the Seattle offer," he said into the phone. "It's not the right time." When he hung up, he found Claire watching him. "I thought you needed space to think," she said. "I did," he answered. "And I thought clearly." She didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed slightly. The next step wasn't dramatic. It was practical. "Counseling," Claire said that evening. Ethan nodded without hesitation. Yes. Their first session felt awkward. Sitting on a soft gray couch in a small office, answering questions about feelings they had avoided for months. But something shifted when the counselor asked one simple question: "When did you stop choosing each other daily?" Neither of them had an answer. They talked about work stress. About missed dinners. About assuming the other person understood without explanation. Claire admitted she had buried herself in deadlines. Ethan admitted he had avoided conflict by staying quiet, and when someone else offered attention, the counselor asked gently, "How did that feel?" Ethan swallowed. "Easy." Claire flinched but didn't look away. Week by week, they talked more at home. No phones at dinner. No distractions during conversations. They relearned small things about each other. Claire's fear of failure at work. Ethan's insecurity about leadership at his firm. One evening, Ethan stood in the living room holding the wedding photo Linda had moved weeks ago. "I'm putting this back where it belongs," he said. He placed it at the center of the wall. It wasn't about Desord, it was about intention. Meanwhile, Linda kept her distance. She moved into a small apartment in Portland. She sent one short message to Claire: "I'm giving you space. I'm working on myself." Claire read it twice. It didn't erase the past. But it showed awareness. Back in Denver, the house slowly felt familiar again. Claire rearranged the furniture herself this time. Ethan helped. They laughed once when they couldn't agree on the couch angle. It felt normal. Light, but healing wasn't perfect. Some nights, Claire's mind replayed that message she saw on Ethan's phone. Some mornings, Ethan sensed her hesitation before she reached for his hand. Trust rebuilds slowly. One rainy Friday, Ethan came home early. He found Claire sitting quietly in the bedroom. "I keep wondering," she said softly, "if it would have gone further." He didn't pretend to misunderstand. "I don't think so," he said honestly. "But I was closer to that edge than I should have been." Her eyes filled with tears. "I hate that I made you feel second," he continued. "You were never second." "But I felt invisible," she whispered. He sat beside her. "Not touching at first. I let someone step into a space that belonged to you," he said. "That's on me." She looked at him carefully. "And I stopped protecting that space too," she admitted. "I assumed you'd just stay." They sat in silence, letting the truth settle. Weeks later, they planned a small weekend trip to the mountains. No big gestures. Just time away. In a quiet cabin surrounded by pine trees, they walked long trails and talked about the early days of their relationship. College classes. Cheap coffee dates. Dreams they once shared. "I don't want comfort with someone else," Ethan said one evening as they watched the sunset. "I want depth with you." Claire studied his face. The defensiveness was gone. So was the confusion. "Then we build it," she said simply. When they returned home, the house felt different again. Not controlled, not invaded, just theirs. One afternoon, Claire received a letter in the mail. It was from Linda. Inside was a short note and a counseling appointment card. "I'm learning boundaries," Linda wrote. "I'm sorry for forgetting mine." Claire folded the note carefully. She didn't feel anger anymore. Only caution and understanding. That night, she showed it to Ethan. He nodded. "I hope she finds peace." Claire looked around the living room. The photo was centered. The curtains were the ones she chose. The air felt steady. "Do you regret telling me?" she asked him suddenly. "No," he answered without pause. "Secrets grow in silence." "I don't want silence with you." She reached for his hand. This time, there was no hesitation. Their marriage wasn't perfect. It had cracks. It had scars, but it also had choice, and this time, they chose each other on purpose, because sometimes infidelity doesn't begin with touch. It begins with distance, and sometimes saving a marriage doesn't require dramatic endings. It requires honest beginnings. The house stood quiet around them. No outside voice. No hidden messages, just two people who almost lost everything, and decided not to.